California clearly in crisis mode when it comes to state finances, but a big money cash crop that really does nothing for the state's GDP could in fact give the Golden State a bit of a boost. At the top of the hour, CNBC Originals production, Marijuana Inc. Inside America's Pot Industry. Trish Regan now takes us into one garden high in the California mountains.
Marijuana plants in Mendocino County can, sometimes reach 14, 15, 20 feet.
Wow. What is this? This has got to be at least 8 feet.
Yeah.
9 feet.
A Mendocino local, Eric Slide, took us on a tour of one backyard garden.
What is the part of the plant that you actually make money off of?
You see these, what we call nodes up here, all right? And those are going to push out what's called a bud. Okay, and these are going to create a larger bud that could weigh anywhere between 3 grams, 5, 10 grams.
And the bud is what actually is taken off of the plant and chopped up and made into marijuana. How much is a plant like this actually worth?
A plant like this, assuming that it's going to yield about 2 pounds, it'd be worth about $5,000.
And how many plants are here?
There's 20 plants here.
Okay, so we're talking about a garden worth of...
potentially $100,000.
My goodness.
Incredible access that Trish had. Asa Hutchinson, the former head of the Drug Enforcement Agency and a former congressman. Aaron Houston is Marijuana Policy Project's Director of Government Relations. Asa, I'll start with you, and I don't want to be heretical here, but just tell me why not, at this point, just legalize it?
Well, it makes no sense. First of all, if you need tax revenues, that's not a good excuse to legalize a harmful and an addictive product. But right now, we're making some progress on our youth that are reducing the addiction to marijuana, harmful drugs, and I don't think we need to reverse that trend.
But if you legalize it, wouldn't that better let you regulate it, essentially? You can have more control over the quality and the production and who gets and who's able to buy it.
Sure. You could regulate it, you can legalize it, but the fact is that Alaska decriminalized marijuana back in the 70s, and it increased usage among the teens, and they recriminalized it in the 90s. They learned a valuable lesson that we should learn from as well. And the same thing is really happening in other countries, including the Netherlands. Whenever you legalize a harmful product, it increases its use. We should be trying to decrease marijuana use, not increase it in America, even though you have some benefits by regulating it. But you would increase use, and that's not good.
We're decriminalizing it in many parts of this country. Aaron, what's the best argument against ACEs?
Well, marijuana is the #1 cash crop in the country, valued at $36 billion a year, according to government data. And our current system of prohibiting marijuana guarantees that market will be completely untaxed and unregulated. Now, Milton Friedman, a famed economist who passed on several years ago, endorsed a report by a Harvard economist that said that if we treated marijuana like alcohol or tobacco, regulated it and taxed it, we could bring in about $14 billion a year. By less conservative estimates, we could bring in around $40 billion a year. I guess what my response to Mr. Hutchinson would be is quoting Ronald Reagan, who said, "The status quo is Latin for the mess we're in." And I think that's applicable here. Your way simply has not worked, sir. We've tried your way for nearly 40 years, and what has it given us? It's given us more bloodshed at the southwestern American border with Mexico, more of our own citizens incarcerated, more bloodshed in our own streets, and more teens using marijuana than ever before, with 10th graders now saying they use marijuana more than tobacco. More 10th graders are using marijuana than tobacco.
Asa, why don't you respond to that?
Well, the fact is that since 2001, drug use has declined among teens by 25%. That's 900,000 fewer using drugs. Say, you quoted Ronald Reagan. It was Ronald Reagan in the 80s that really said we need to reduce drug use in our country, and took the fight to the drug cartels. And the fact is we've reduced overall drug use by 50% in our country since the late 70s, the early 80s. So we're on the right track in this country.
Let's bring in Art Hogan, because these two men are obviously very close to the issue. And all the potential joking aside, there's $1 billion of potential revenue, but it's an illicit drug forever in this country. How do you view it?
Well, I think you have to look at it two ways. First of all, look at our experience with prohibition with alcohol. That made problems worse. There was violence. There was, the mob was making the money, and you saw a lot of smuggling, in both borders. Look at the fact that as a country, how do we rationalize having tobacco gambling, alcohol, all relatively addictive, possibly addictive habits, if you will, legal, and looking at marijuana as something else, altogether.
Asa, let me continue that point. Is marijuana viewed as a stepping stone to other drugs? Is that why there's a concern more so than, say, with alcohol or any other kind of addictive product out there that's legal in the market?
Well, there's certainly indications that those who use marijuana are much more likely to use cocaine, methamphetamine, those drugs. The key question is it harmful? And I think the conclusion is, and the medical experts say it is harmful. When you talk about where somehow you're going to reduce the influence of the criminal organizations, the cartels, they're just going to be peddling cocaine or heroin or other hard drugs. I don't think anybody wants to legalize those. You're not solving any problem by legalizing another harmful drug.
Didn't you feel at any point, though, Asa, that you were fighting a losing battle? It's just climbing up the mountain. It continues to move higher and higher.
That is, the answer is no, because I could see the success. And you cite the statistics that drug use declines, you save lives. I know the difference it makes in families whenever you can reduce the availability of drugs. You can, through leadership, discourage teens from going down that path. When you save those lives, I think it's the right direction for America. President Obama talks about the era of responsibility, and I think part of it starts right here in making sure that we go the right direction on illegal drugs.
Aaron, Asa makes some powerful arguments in terms of marijuana being a stepping stone to other drugs out there. Is there a concern on your part that, yes, that could be a side effect? Because take a look at what happened in Alaska, where they legalize it but then recriminalize it, as Asa points out.
Well, that's a very poor argument, and it's not analogous because there was not actually a legal regulated market in Alaska, nor has there really been a good experiment with this around the world. I mean, he pointed out the Netherlands as well. It's decriminalized there in certain places. So we've never really seen this legal, taxed, and regulated market. But I guess the question I would pose to him, is this working? Is our current system working? The Justice Department said several weeks ago...
Aaron, I'm sorry to interrupt, but just to ask you that question again, it's a powerful argument, it seems, that marijuana is a stepping stone to other drugs like cocaine and other more powerful drugs. Isn't that a concern of yours, that you open the door to marijuana and all of a sudden you've opened a Pandora's box?
No, because the laws that prohibit marijuana's use are much, much more harmful than the drug itself. We don't claim that marijuana is entirely harmless, but what we do say is that the laws intended to prohibit its use are much, much more harmful than the drug itself. And we see that now with more kids using marijuana. I mean, he's citing numbers that were cooked by the Bush administration.
Well, I think the debate is legitimate on both sides, Aaron, but we do appreciate your time. Aaron and Asa, thanks for joining us on the program. We are just a few minutes away from dealing directly with a lot of these issues and getting access you have not seen before.